Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a Tarot After Dark message for you. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Ace of Wands. This is passion above all passions, the most divine expression of pure passion and excitement and attraction that one could embody. And it comes from an ethereal source. Let's see where we're building from that message. Let's see what we got here. We got the King of Cups, the Knight of Swords, the Magician card. Oh, the Justice, and the King of Wands. Let's see here. At the bottom, we got somebody watching from a distance. Well, right away, I see the correlation of the watcher with the Knight of Swords, who's looking to ride in fiercely for some in some fever of passion. That's what I hear. The Knight of Cups is a loving king. He operates from a space of love and emotions, whereas the King of Wands operates from a space of passion and even pleasure. Now, with the synergy of the Ace of Wands in the very beginning of the spread, I would say that this is like two energies going head to head in some passionate dispute. One is coming from an emotional space, and one is coming from a passionate space. Now, to be completely honest, the intentions are a bit imbalanced. We got this King of Cups over here who's connected to this energy of entitlement and even anger and aggression. He really wants to conquer his target, his objective. But those intentions are a bit questionable. Then you have the King of Wands, who feels justified in his objections, his obsessions, I would even say. He's connected to this Justice card here, where he doesn't really feel like he has to work aggressively to conquer his object of affection, because he knows that his passions are justified. He knows that they're pure. Back to that Ace of Wands. I feel that this energy here is the connecting source to this end of the spectrum, where there's a watching, maybe even a stalking, so be careful. a watching from a distance, and this feeling of urgency to conquer some object of affection. But is it really affection is the question. We got the King of Cups, who would be the most loving king. But I feel that the King of Cups in this sense is possessed by his own emotions, not so much by the emotion that he may feel or be incited to from the so-called object of his affections, his emotional target. The King of Wands with this Justice card, this is really, to me, an expression of a passion that is pure, something that comes from a space of truth, and that although it is very fierce, because the King of Wands is known to be very ambitious in his endeavors, it still is balanced in its intentions. It's not to necessarily hurt or harm the object of affection as much as it is to just please that object. That object being you being the objectified expression of love here in the Magician card is ultimately what I feel. That you are the magic in this mayhem. You are the common denominator that balances these two opposite ends of the spectrum. It's your very essence of manifestation, being able to bring your visions to life effortlessly, being resourceful in your organic nature, being independent, self-assured, self-aware of that magic that you possess, and stable and grounded in your own established energetic force, not being codependent for anything or anyone, or codependent on anything or anyone. That is what makes you so tempting, so attractive, so alluring, so desirable, so undeniable, that you have admirers speculating and spectating from far and wide, wondering who you really are. How is it that you do what you do? What is that magic that you possess? And how it might feel to be closer to that magical essence. Fantastical thoughts about the sensation of your love, ultimately. That your love is idealized as some magical force, a mystery. Desired by walks of energies that are even quite different in nature, some of which you perhaps wouldn't even imagine would be attracted or interested, let alone intrigued by your presence. But in fact, they are, so much so that it incites a bit of aggression in their pursuits. It incites overwhelming passion for the pleasure of your company. And in this array of interests, what's most important is that you maintain the true essence and authenticity of your magic, that you not be manipulated or finessed to shape-shifting into anything but who you are innately. Being assured that it's the very nature of you in your purest form, in your most natural expression, that is the attractive force. So that when you do choose, whether it be this or that, or none of the above, you realize that it's for the very reason that you are who you are, as to why you have the choices that you have, and that there's nothing that you need to do to mold and shape and manipulate yourself into anything else but what feels good to be you organically, and that you wouldn't let anyone else impose that energetic force of manipulation to shape you into anything but what you feel most exalted as, all whole and complete as yourself. So we see with this King of Cups and Knight of Swords, he loves you, but the undertone of his love is a little bit jaded, a little bit entitled, maybe a bit possessive in nature. King of Wands, he loves you. He also is a little bit more reserved in his pursuits, perhaps himself waiting for some balance or justification to take action on his impulses, maybe almost a little bit too reserved in some ways. And as you are sitting here as the main attraction, the encouragement is to allow yourself to be so, to not leave that stage, not to get up off your throne, not to move 1 inch beyond where you intended to go all on your own, but to be in a position of reception for the offer that is best suited to your liking, knowing that whomever is so blessed to connect with you is ultimately the one that will have the courage to step forward and will do so in the highest integrity, even in their passion, in their passionate pursuit. That because you are the magician with that infinity sign over your head, you'll know exactly which offers are a yes and which ones are a no. Part of your magic also is your discernment and your fierce independence to not be in need of any partnership in particular, knowing that it's an enhancement to what you have to offer and not a necessity. Knowing that it's a privilege to be in connection, and certainly for anyone to be connected to you in any way, shape, or form, but especially passionately so. That access to that mystical world is a very exclusive one, and that none but the righteous have right to enter. So for those that are aggressive, those that are passive, you are poised in either regard to just be and allow the one that has the courage to be authentically to present himself accordingly, openly and honestly, authentically, and be willing to take the chance to connect with the most magnificent experience that they've ever encountered. Let's see what else we got. Let's see something about this King of Cups. Let's do it like that. What's the King of Cups given? Overflow of emotions. Wants to move forward. Give me another card for the King of Cups. So the King of Cups is just brimming with passion, or he wants you. That's what I just hear, but let's see. Okay. Yeah. And here you are, a bit blocked to this advance. The King of Cups is overflowing with emotion, as I even said already. The thing that is questionable, though, is what emotion and from what intention. With this Emperor card here, especially under the Knight of Swords, it's giving me the vibe of exactly what I said, which is that there's some sense of entitlement and some intention to possess this flow of love that I'm going to actually see as the objectification of you and what you are, what you offer, which is this overflow, you know, of divine love energy. There's some passive, well, not even passive, very assertive aggression in the pursuit of that experience. But I feel the intention, as I said, is it's a bit jaded. It's a little bit too possessive, too intentional to control that force that is you, that energy to, you know, contain it and possess it for self, when obviously, you know, this is not a cup to be contained. And I feel that your energy is more or less blocked to vibrations of possession and control, having been exalted from a universal perspective with the Magician card as an autonomous being, you know, with qualities that are magnified in every element, you know, every characteristic of yours, from the pentacles, the cups, the sword, the wand, and even a scepter is exalted and it's above average, well above average. It's exceptional, as a matter of fact, in the Magician's energy. Your love is just so high vibrational that it can't be contained, it can't be possessed. You know, so even with the true essence of love at the core with the King of Cups, it would be a misalignment, maybe even a turnoff to you for someone to want to come in and lock you down, you know, make you conform to some structure of commitment, you know, based on any conventional standards, which is what the Emperor more or less gives me, that would want to almost block this energetic flow, or maybe not block it, but dictate, in the Emperor energy, dictate how it gets to flow, what it flows to, and who flows with it. You know, there's definitely a pleasure in submission to your partner, one to another, but there's an implication of some imbalance in that submission here, where the Emperor will want to be supreme, you know, and although there's a great appreciation for the value of your love, the possession may overrule it a bit. Maybe just, you know, from some space of maybe a little bit of, dare I say, insecurity about being able to really contain that flow, because if he can see the value in your essence, he knows that other people can see it. And there might be a little bit, maybe a little bit of jealousy, actually, is what I'm picking up here, about your exposure and the exchange of your vibration with others in ways that may be intimate, you know, more intimate than he would appreciate. You know, not intimate even in a sexual way, but, you know, the magician is definitely, you being in the magician energy says that you just know how to connect with every element because you embody every element. And someone, you know, that has an emotional come from and those energies being magnified, you know, he's most magnetized to the spirit of you. There's just a certain aggression toward more or less controlling how that spirit is shared, and maybe being a little bit nervous about losing access to that spiritual flow. Maybe not perhaps even measuring up, in a sense, to the potential points of access outside of himself, because there's a realization that you're so universal and so multifaceted that you may actually make a better connection with someone in those other elements where he may feel less inclined or, you know, less exalted. He's very emotional, as you can see here, and emotionally driven. But maybe you might meet a man that's smarter, or a man that is more exciting with the wands, or a man that's more rich. These are the insecurities of the King of Cups, who wants to be the dominant force of authority in your love connection. And I don't know, but something is telling me that that's not really gonna work for you. Yeah, you are the Temperance. You are balance. And certainly the Queen of Cups, you know, you're definitely not foreign to, but not for your spiritual energy to be monopolized by anything beyond the Supreme Source itself. You are of divine nature. No one owns you but God. Whatever that universal force is that you submit to right here. Wow, yep. And look at this. Yeah, so even if you are the choice of a million men, it would still come down to what the Supreme Source has ordained as your ultimate match. And if there is not balance, spiritual balance in that connection, it's not going to go far. So the King of Cups might fare better really solidifying his acceptance of his emotional value, find an appreciation for his spiritual essence, for his love, you know, finding confidence even in his natural force of love, being satisfied with just his own self-control before he might want to pursue a relationship with, or a connectionship with you or anyone else. Let's see what we got for the King of Wands. If I could get 2 cards, I'd love to keep it balanced. Oh, that's it's 3, but we'll see. All right, we got the so the King of Wands is looking over. This is his apprehension. He's looking over his investments in love and in the things that he has gained from his past experiences of love, and observing his losses. As I said, there's some justification that he's waiting on to take action on what is undoubtedly a deep passion, even from the first card out being the Ace of Wands. That's passion in its most profound form, which signifies that he's a very passionate lover, maybe loves hard, as they say. And maybe those past experiences haven't fared very well for him. In the past, he's been hurt, he's been rejected, and it has caused, and he's invested a lot and got very little back in return for his energy. And it's caused him to be resistant to the Ace of Cups, as pictured here in the Four of Cups, resistant to receiving love, and ultimately resistant to releasing it, or reluctant to releasing it. The justice of this experience is according to what he will allow himself to forgive of his past experiences, what he can truly overcome, and the emotions that he can balance from those points of rejection and resistance, and maybe even just mismanagement of his own energy. The King of Wands is definitely known to be a ladies' man. So perhaps it was, you know, poor investments of his wand with energetic forces, i.e. cups, that were not in alignment, that were not on the vibration, that didn't share the vibration of his passion for life in general, let alone for love. Now the Sun card is here. Oh, and we got the World card at the bottom. The Sun card is here, which is definitely a prosperous projection, you know, of happiness and productivity and joy, and maybe even exposure of the accountability he gets to take for his past experiences and expressions in a way that will lead to healing and ultimately lead to new cycles of an evolved experience of love, ultimately, an evolved life experience overall and in general. One that does not persist of him sowing his energy into bad soil continuously and expecting to harvest a fruitful crop, a plentiful crop, you know, one that allows him to see or to accept the value of love that he is and that he has to offer, regardless of what his experience have reflected. And one that just would allow for new seeds to be planted, as pictured in this card here. This is definitely one of productivity, prosperity. There's a child, sunflowers, you know, it's the most vibrant energy in the deck. I think the King of Wands has been afraid to allow himself to be happy for fear of being hurt ultimately. But to, by more rigid and less emotional feminine forces. So much so that he's begun to, you know, he's kind of he's surrendered in a sense to this ideal that women are a threat. Their true nature is cunning and detached and ultimately a violent objective force against his innate passion, because the King of Wands is just naturally passionate. It's really nothing he can do about it. The worst thing for him is to just invest it in the wrong things, to channel it, you know, in the wrong things. But the passion never dies. The fire never dies in the King of Wands. So it has to find some source to connect with, you know, as fire does, to continue to burn. Cups energy. The emotions are endless. So it needs to find some soil to absorb in, because it never stops flowing. So it's really seems to be about the balance of both of these energies coming into some level of acceptance and appreciation for their essence, and recognizing where it's just been misplaced or mismanaged or even just mishandled by themselves and underappreciated ultimately. King of Wands is not really a match for either of these energies in general, you know. Not to say opposites can't attract, you know, but for a King of Swords, for a King of Wands, she's just a little bit too rigid and too logical, you know, and perhaps that balance could work for sure, but you know, and then there's also this air essence that could ignite that fire to blaze even higher, truly. But there, you know, generally may be a mismatch in the passions of life, the incitement to take risks and to, you know, to embrace adventure and the uncertainties of life. And for the King of Cups, She just may be a little bit too emotionally detached, maybe a little too rigid to truly align with such an emotional creature as the King of Cups, who is led by his emotional state, who is fueled by intimacy and energy, maybe even a bit needy to a Queen of Swords at times, you know, and from an emotional aspect, because he requires just as much of an exchange as he's looking to express. You know, he's looking for that return one to another. And you might just not get that from a Queen of Swords, not the way that you're looking for it. You know, she may be able to express her ideals clearly and concisely, but it might not be with as much emotion and passion as these two may like. So, you know, no disrespect to the Queen of Swords, because as the Magician, almost likened to the Empress energy, you embody all of the queens. And on any particular day, you can pick up any element on that table and decide to express yourself with it at will. But it's about the true essence of you, which is what the Queen of Swords, the truth of you, that you are most comfortable and most natural expressing, whether it be the Queen of Wands or the Queen of Cups or the Queen of Pentacles or the Queen of Swords. Whatever that essence is, the one that is in the greatest alignment with you is the one that can just allow it to be, allow you to be, and to flow freely with it, to more or less meet you where you are, and not to lead and guide you where they want you to be. So it really takes a very powerful masculine energy, not just one who wants to be in charge, but one that actually is in charge, as this energy is here, of his own essence, you know, of his spiritual nature that is balanced himself in spirit and in truth, that is secure in who he is, to not be intimidated by such a magical creature as you know, that is going to embrace every aspect of you and also balance the misalignments when you're a little bit more on your emotional side. Maybe he can be the one to balance you with logic when you are a little bit more on the logical side. Maybe he can bring in the passion, you know, so forth and so on. And ultimately, given that you embody all of these wonderful elements, you would be able to do the same for him. So it's ultimately here about this balance of forces, you know, two divinely exalted beings that are secure in their spiritual nature and in their physical nature, grounded mentally and spiritually in every way, shape, and form, and it being proven, exhibited in their life, not just an ideal, but there's evidence of that balance. It's been tried and tested, you know, by the universe. It's been proven to be true. That is ultimately the match for a magical woman such as yourself. That is the divine partnership that is most exalted in the earth, that affords the most inspiration one to another and expresses the most inspiration even, you know, externally to those that connect to it or that are a witness to it. which ultimately is the purpose of a divine union in the first place, to be an expression of unconditional love, of a balanced partnership that is unique and whole and complete within itself, that expresses to others the hope and the possibility of that same gift of love exchange. You know, so I'm just tempted to see what's on the top of the deck. Man, I think I'm gonna call it a day. Okay, so we got the Three of Pentacles, or Knight, I should say. What's this under here? Oh, there goes that damn devil again. Now this is like, you know, just being upright in the temptation to want to overburden yourself with the ideals, you know, of partnership, to even bound yourself to some contempt of what partnership should be, based on what you've experienced, based on what's been projected to you, based on all that you even think you know or don't know. You know, this is the burden that one carries voluntarily and often unnecessarily, to be bound to some restriction on passion, as if it can only be one thing, as if there's only one definition of passion fulfilled. That's a very rigid perspective. And although, you know, we definitely want to stand clear of those obsessive and possessive natures that ultimately the King of Cups and the King of Wands could be susceptible to, we still want to allow ourselves the freedom to explore our most sensational selves, and not let it be a cage or a burden to us based on what we've been projected as righteous and what is not. That's an expression that is very unique and personal and, you know, particular to the individuals that are engaging. And yes, the Devil card often can be a very derogatory energy, but in this essence, I feel like it's just being a slave to your ego in the way of relationships. And that enslavement is, as I said, often a projection of what society is dictating. When we allow our natural, this is the octave here of the Lover's card. The lower octave, perfectly placed. You know, when we are answering to the highest calling of our passions, it doesn't look like anything that we can compare it to outside of ourselves. It's unique, all in its own. We begin to be enslaved when we try to compare it and contrast it with the value of others. It's a balance that is very interpersonal. You know, these are like the Two of Cups being balanced. It's an agreement between the individuals that are voluntarily offering themselves, submitting themselves to one another, literally committing in this Hierophant card here, whether it be in actual matrimony or just in some divine commitment that is understood and respected between the parties. So that passion can look like anything. To some, it may look evil. It may look, you know, a little bit taboo. It may look a little bit freaky. but as long as it's in alignment with the highest source and force that you submit to. And that means that it's not in a compromise with your true nature. So in this essence, the magician wouldn't compromise her emotional force being with someone that just wants to possess and control it. The magician wouldn't compromise expending her passion on someone that's ultimately afraid to receive it and express his own. There would have to be a balance down the middle universally for that magician. Again, someone that can tantalize all of her senses in one way, shape, or form, or one time or another, if not all together at once, that would deem itself or himself worthy of that submission, of that devotion, of that connection. To settle in any regard would ultimately be answering to that ego and that lower nature, catering to that lower nature that's doing something for the value and for the sake of anything or anyone else, and sacrificing self in the process. And that's just not a love that I believe is divinely ordained. Compromise, yes, but self-sacrifice, meaning you literally have to lose some essence of yourself in order to be in connection, nah. Not only is that not called for, it also doesn't last. It's not lasting in spirit or in truth. It's not satisfying, it's not gratifying, and it doesn't truly inspire. So, and that inspiration leads back to that original card of the Ace of Wands. That's divine inspiration, one that is received and one that is expressed. That's ultimately what that card is, about creativity from a very high vibrational source, one that is exalted ethereally and then expressed in an earthly sense. But it has to be received, it gets to be embodied before it can be expelled. And if there's any part of you that's left to be desired in the partnerships that you have and the partnerships that are presented, it's going to ultimately be a stifle to that creative flow, a stifle to that overflow, a stifle to that productivity, prosperity, and to the sensational experience of life as it is ultimately intended to experience. So yeah, this Three of Pentacles here is about, you know, ultimately like being enlightened on your position of love before there is even collaboration. So as I spoke about with the King of Cups, how the King of Cups gets to ready himself for love, and how the King of Wands gets to ready himself for love, it's also about you being highly enlightened. This is like a higher learning card in this sense. Highly enlightened to the ordinance of love that you are sourced from, sourced of. You know, this is all you, dark and light, in your most tempting aspect, in your most divine aspect, and it's all ordained, it's all in alignment as long as it's in balance. And being aware of that essence of, that's the magic, that's the mystery of you, that you are just as much of a freak in the streets as you are a lady in the street, a freak in the sheets, as you are a lady in the streets. You know, that ultimate balance of knowing exactly when to express yourself, but always doing it authentically and naturally. It's important to really be enlightened to that true essence of you before you come into union, before you even consider connection on an intimate level, before you even consider submitting your spirit to another. Know what you bring to the table, literally, in this Magician's card. Know that you bring it all. You literally bring every element, every magical element to the table in the most balanced way, in the most tantalizing way, and in the most supreme and sensational way that there is to exist. And it is very important to be self-assured and confident in that true essence, so that you don't supplement your satisfaction by settling for anything less. That the one that is a true match to you will be a magician as well in his own right. One that is embodying every element and is eager to exchange and balance the essences, every essence of you, and at least, if nothing else, to appreciate and reverence you as something sacred and whole and complete, just as you are. That you would be the perfect match, even with all your imperfections. You'd be the perfect partner for someone that is intentional about experiencing and expressing love from its most divine and high vibrational source. And that's that on that. It is so. And that's this episode of Tarot After Dark. Thank you for joining me. And with that, I bid you sweet dreams. And until next time, peace.